What's happening, nerds? Y'all's weekend is ending, and mine's just beginning because I work the weekends. Anyway, it's been a while since I did this, and so I'm just gonna get right into it.
It's an Ozzie Smith Weekend, right here on this little screen. Backflips in the highlight reel, legend in his dreams. From the Wizard to Molina, yeah, he loves them all the same. It's an Ozzie Smith Weekend, John's living in the cards in the game.
I just pulled out a few cards. It's been 2 or 3 weeks since I've done an Ozzie Smith Weekend video. And these cards just kind of fill like three thoughts that I was kind of having and whatnot. But Andy over at Andy's Attic, he did that intro song for me. I've said that a handful of times, but if y'all haven't checked it out, he's been doing this 90s series of his. And what's really cool about that is he's talking about, some 90s sets that are not commonly talked about. It's not the refractors, or at least yet anyway, and things like that. But in his latest video, he did this Select Stars, where he highlighted this set, the first pack pulled Dufex insert. And I thought that was really cool because he showed an Ozzie Smith card, of course. But with his thing about just showing really cool 90s cards, some that you may not know about, may have forgotten, kind of when I was flipping through my binder, I pulled out a couple that I thought are super awesome from the 90s. We know of Prism cards, the Panini Prism, which is like homage or whatever you want to call it from the old Pacific Prism cards. And so, Ozzy has one from back in that time. And these are just really, really fun to look at, And so, I wonder how many other player collectors that collect the 90s cards, if y'all have these in your collection, that'd be really cool to see. And what's cool about this, like a lot of Pacific cards of the time, you have French and English on the back. Really cool stuff, but man, these are just wild to look at these days, and they come up with some crazy stuff now. And for whatever reason, these just hit different. It's not a whole like they don't make them like they used to. It's just they got a different feeling to them. You know what I mean? And in Score and Pacific and Pinnacle, they were really good about making some amazing stuff. This highlight zone card. And one of the things that I thought was kind of funny with this card specifically is now I seem to be getting more into reading the backs of the cards nowadays when it comes to these Ozzy cards. But the writing on the back, really talks about that 1996 season. So this had to have been produced certainly after the All-Star game, because it talks about him being selected for the All-Star game in 96, being relegated to a backup that year. But it is definitely a 1996 card, so they might have come out with a later series or something of the sort at that time. I didn't look it up, so I guess I could have done that, but I just wanted to look at some cool cards, show some cool cards, not really get into research of stuff. But those are a couple really cool cards that when I looked at them, I thought of Andy's video. So then I had to get out the Select Stars card, shout him out a little bit. Additionally, when I was going through my binder, when I did the video on for collectors about the 5 cards everybody should own, and I showed that 1988 Ozzie Smith Ryan Sandberg card, we were talking about Fleer back in the day, coming out with some really cool cards, and I was going through, and there was definitely a time gap of just like awesome cards that Fleer was making at the time, and it really started at like 1991 and it's like they took a break or something for a few years. But before that, though, they would come out with some really cool cards. You know, they would have the base card, and then they would have like superstar special cards. I've showed some of those before on my channel. They would have the base card, a mini, which sometimes would have a different image. Then they started getting into like the stickers. The most known, of course, or most popular are going to be like the Michael Jordans from the basketball sets. But then they would also have like all these just different other themed cards, like award winners and MVP, which is more like a team MVP kind of thing or what have you. And like these are a couple examples of that. But you know, this is 1988 Fleer Baseball's Hottest Stars, and this is a 44 card set, which I like these bigger sets for like, you know, these subsets inserts, is because, you know, you get people that are player collectors, team collectors, and a set of that size really increases the chances that all teams are represented. You'd have some of those insert sets that would be like 12 or 20 in a 30 team league or whatever, and so therefore not every team's going to be represented, and some teams would have multiple players because they were the hottest stars at the time, of course. But this is really cool stuff for people like me. And then, you know, there was like another one, and I just like the designs of this. You know, it just kind of just speaks to the times before the explosion of the technology era, if that's what you want to call it. You know, the insert era, where everybody is one-upping each other. But, you know, here's from 1990, and this award winners card. And what's funny is, for several years, Fleer did these award winners cards, and again, this is a 44 card set that this came out of, but it doesn't tell you the award. I mean, I guess you can kind of assume with Ozzie it's a Gold Glove that they're referring to, but there was one there that he had an award winner card from a Fleer, and it said Slugger Award, but that it was a 1988 card, and that was following his Silver Slugger season. Not bad for a guy who can't hit, right? But anyway, I just love this stuff. You know, very late 80s, early 90s look and feel to it. Again, just the way that the cards hit as you're looking at them. And I remember these cards from when I was a kid, and they're just like burnt in my brain. You know what I mean? But yeah, I really, really like Fleer cards of that time. You know, and when you get a player like Ozzie, other great players, you know, the Don Mattingleys, Barry Larkins, they're going to have a whole bunch of Fleer cards. So when you're collecting your guy, you know, it just really kind of helps build the volume, fill out these 9 pocket pages, and just a whole lot of fun to look at, you know. And then one of the things I was thinking of recently, I was talking to a friend of mine, and you remember all those cards, those pop-up cards? And I got one right here. This is 1988. This is from like Leaf Donruss. And this is definitely from when I was a kid. I had this card when I was a kid. You can see it's kind of beat up, right? But there's a reason for that. So obviously it's card, you know, it's flat like a card. But then you could pop it out like that. And so I, of course, have all of the Ozzie ones like this. And there were many sets, manufacturers that did this kind of thing. There was your large manufacturers, there was your Food Issues and what have you, that did this kind of stuff in the late 80s, early to mid 90s. And I have all of them. And you can see like this one right here, I know what it looks like, and I see it popped out like this. But then you have other ones like this, and this is the post Canadian Ozzie from 92. And you see it's got a tab here, so you would pull it out and whatnot, and the card would pop out, similar to like what this did, you know. And this Kind of goes back to like the the batter up cards from the 30s, and then you had the tops ones from the 60s, the stand up cards. Like Ken Boyer's got a card in that set, and I got a few of those batter up cards too. But like you see, like this one I got later in life, of course, and once I learned of it, but it's very flat. I've never pulled this out. And one of the things I thought about doing is I could just, fold this back in, put it back in the pocket page, of course. I could just leave this like it is and put it in there. Or I could take all these, pop them out, see what it's like, because there is no value to these kind of cards. And, just see what it's like, actually play with the cards, you know what I mean? I could pull them out of the binder, pop them out, put them on my shelf. I'd have to count all these up, but there's at least a dozen Ozzie Smith cards that do this. I could also buy another copy of all of these and pop them out and whatnot, display them, and then still have the cards in my binder. I haven't really figured out what I want to do, if I'm going to do anything different than what I've been doing. But these are fun, doing this kind of stuff, and it's stuff that they, obviously just doesn't get made anymore. Certainly the food issues, right? But like I said, I was talking with a friend of mine. It was just like, I'm thinking about, getting doubles of all these and popping them out, displaying them, because that's what they were intended to be. They were intended for kids to get, collect, and pop out and play with them. So I thought about, kind of like going back to my inner child, or whatever you want to call it, and doing that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Anyway, I was just wanting to have fun, show some Ozzie Smith cards, and get back on the wagon of these Ozzie Smith Weekend videos. So this isn't going to be too terribly long. There's no overarching theme, no hot information or anything like that. But anyway, this is how I'm nerding out, and thanks for nerding out with me.